एक दशक में भारत टॉप 5 इकोनॉमी में आ गया। और साथियों, मैं पूरी जिम्मेवारी से कह रहा हूं, दुनिया की थर्ड लार्जेस्ट इकोनॉमी बनते देखेंगे।
A very warm welcome to all our viewers. You're watching Market Cafe on ET now. After a bloodbath week, what we saw on last week in Indian markets, how are global cues supporting the markets today? What are the top cues that you need to watch out? But first thing, before we go and get you all that, ET now concluded the 9th edition of the action-packed Global Business Summit in the national capital. We had the privilege of sparking actionable conversations with some of the most influential minds of the world, from politics to business. We had voices from across spheres ready to ignite bold ideas, visionary dialogues, and game-changing strategies for a future-ready economy. Prime Minister Modi delivered a powerful address outlining India's dynamic progress and future trajectory. Reflecting on India's country's growth through reforms, he reaffirmed his vision of a rapidly advancing India positioned for global leadership. Meanwhile, we also heard from Paytm's Vijay Shekhar Sharma on the growth blueprint he has in mind for the company. JSPL's Naveen Jindal talks ambitious targets for steel capacity and outlines a very Atmanirbhar strategy for the growth of the company. Goldman Sachs' Kevin Snyder highlighted 3 big challenges for the Indian economy: tariffs, inflation, and interest rates. Union Minister Piyush Goyal highlights the completion of a trade agreement with US by the year end. All voices certainly aligned with the theme, of course, evolve, emerge, expand. Stay tuned to ET Now for excerpts from all the interesting dialogues we had over 2 power-packed days.
सिर्फ एक दशक में भारत टॉप 5 इकोनॉमी में आ गया। और साथियों, मैं पूरी जिम्मेवारी से कह रहा हूं, अब अगले कुछ सालों में ही आप भारत को दुनिया की थर्ड लार्जेस्ट इकोनॉमी बनते देखेंगे। विकसित भारत का स्पीड ऑफ डेवलपमेंट क्या होता है, ये भी आप देख रहे हैं। सिर्फ एक दशक में भारत टॉप 5 इकोनॉमी में आ गया। एक युवा देश को यही स्पीड चाहिए, और आज इसी स्पीड से भारत चल रहा है। साथियों, पहले की सरकारें रिफॉर्म से बचती रही।
In a way, your theme, evolve, emerge, and expand, mirrors the India story. And I'll try to keep my address around the way we have evolved, the way we have emerged, the way we have expanded the India growth story in the last 10 years, now soon to be 11. I think India's rise has been across 5 important pillars. One, our global leadership, particularly as a global soft power. 2, the economy, what we've done on manufacturing and investments. 3, innovation and entrepreneurship. 4, infrastructure development and consumption-led growth. and fifth, women-led development. And on all these 5 pillars, India has been able to showcase an emerging story which, as rightly the Honorable Prime Minister yesterday mentioned, is well on track to become the world's 3rd largest economy.
Payment is critical, profitable by standalone, scale, कितने मिलियन लोग हैं हमारे पास. हमारा मानना ऐसा है कि हम 200-250 मिलियन लोगों को ये देश में सर्व कर पाएंगे जो हमारे प्लेटफॉर्म को यूज करेंगे. मैं मार्केट शेयर से ज़्यादा वो जो अच्छी क्वालिटी के 25 करोड़ लोग हैं उनको चाहूँगा अपने प्लेटफॉर्म पे. एंड आई कैन से दैट वी आर प्रिविलेज्ड दैट वी कंटिन्यू टू हैव देम ऑन आवर प्लेटफॉर्म बिकॉज लेट्स से इवन इफ समथिंग चर्न हैपेंड इट डिड नॉट हैपन ऑफ द गुड क्वालिटी कस्टमर. So, first of all, payment is big. Credit is, like you said, distribution of credit. We are recalibrating. We have added FLDG somewhere. We've removed the distribution somewhere and so on and so forth. Will remain one of the key driver of profit. Internally, the team and the kind of effort in the business we've done, we are clearly committed in the next quarter to deliver profit. And we have made a public statement about it. Thank you. And I believe that the best benchmark of profit will be PAT and the free cash that the company generates. I am completely committed to deliver a PAT growing company, and that I don't see very far. Like I said, in the next quarter, we have already called out, and next year, let's see what happens.
Products that we supply to the US fulfill a very important requirement for the US government, which is to control the healthcare cost in the US. I mean, if you read some of the statements, then they're also looking at multiple carve-outs so that some of the products will be kept out of the scope of the tariff. Even if they are not, I think the generic business, as you're aware, has undergone significant price erosion over last few years. So in case if tariffs are levied, I think most of those tariffs will be passed on to customers. So I'm not seeing a significant negative impact of the tariff on the industry because the competitive advantage that we have as a country is long term. It's not going to go away overnight. And even if some manufacturing was to start, in pharma business, it takes at least 5 to 7 years to bring a new manufacturing facility online, get products approved, start manufacturing. So it's a long-term process. So I expect no immediate short-term impact on tariff in pharma industry.
All right, so quite interesting conversation, very powerful conversation, and the headlines that we got from this edition of Global Business Summit. But now let's get you the cues from global markets, especially the US market. All 3 major averages ended the week in the green mark. Sentiment actually improved after investors got more certainty around President Donald Trump's tariff plans. Now, if you look at on the Friday moves, Dow, that one shed nearly 165 points, 0.37%. That's what exactly the indices fell. S&P 500, that one ticked down marginally and closed at 6,114 mark, whereas Nasdaq, that one added 0.4% and closed at above 20,000 mark. Of course, on the economic front, traders actually shrugged off the data which came in last week. If you look at inflation data which came in, CPI especially, that came in, of course, higher than estimates. But there was a softer reading if you look at PCE data. And of course, traders also shrugged off the retail sales data that was released on Friday. That reflected a 0.9% slump for the month of January. But then we have Shreyansi also with us to talk about oil. Oil did saw some change over the weekend, Shreyansi.
Well, absolutely. And the change is more so in terms of factors, because when you take a look at prices, it's not much of a change coming in as far as oil prices are concerned. So you do have Brent that is closing down just about 0.4% on Friday, and US WTI as well, that settled just about 55 cents lower, or 0.7%, 0.8% thereabout. But when you take a look at the factors, that's where you see the important move happening, because oil prices fell slightly on the prospects for a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine that could ease global supply disruptions by ending sanctions against Moscow. Losses, of course, were limited by a delay in US immediate reciprocal tariffs. So that has been something that we've been talking about for a while, and also a factor that's been developing for quite some time now. Both contracts, in fact, were on track for weekly gains of about 1%. On the back of that, at this point now, when you take a look at what else is happening in terms of factors, you do have the sanctions that could be lifted on Moscow in the event of a peace deal. And that is something that, like I've mentioned, should be boosting global energy supply. So definitely something that we're looking at by the way of factors. Other than that, of course, you do have Trump who had driven Iran's oil exports to near zero during his first term after reimposing sanctions. And there's been some sort of commentary coming in that there could be a return of those sanctions. So on the back of that, you do have that also limiting losses. Weekly gains is what you were looking at, but slight downtick at least on a daily basis, Priyanka.
All right, let's go ahead with more of the global stories, and let's tell you what happened in Japan. Japan's economic expansion in the fourth quarter, that would beat analyst expectation on a quarter-on-quarter basis as well as on an annualized basis. Boosted by jump in the exports. GDP grew 0.7% on Q-on-Q basis, more than 0.3% rise, which was in line with it, which was expected. It had expanded by a revised 0.4% in the previous quarter. A jump in exports growth compared with the prior quarter helped boost GDP, while domestic demand was a drag on growth, contracted marginally, and on an annualized basis, GDP grew 2.8%. This one exceeded estimates. It was penciled in for a 1% of growth.
On to some more updates coming in from the US. US President Donald Trump keeps his tariff drumbeat going, says he plans to unveil tariffs on imported cars in early April, adding to a cascade of levies he has threatened since assuming office.
And of course, in an ironic set of events that have unfolded on the geopolitical front, reports now suggest that Kyiv has not been invited to talks between the US and Russia aimed at ending the war in Ukraine. The US Special Envoy to Ukraine, Keith Kellogg, has said Kyiv would be involved in today's talk in Saudi Arabia, but reports are now saying otherwise. European leaders have also not been asked to join the discussions and are due to meet instead in Paris at a summit hastily arranged by the French president. As fears grow, the continent is being locked out of negotiations.
Meanwhile, the Ukrainian president has refused to give United States half of its mineral wealth in return for support from the Trump administration. The US proposed a deal where they would provide aid to Ukraine, and in return, they would get 50% ownership of the country's mineral deposits, including graphite, lithium, and uranium. According to Ukraine, the proposal did not offer any specific security guarantees. In return, Zelensky's decision not to accept the proposal, at least for now, was described as short-sighted by a senior White House official.
All right, with this, we stay for a short break here. When we come back, we get to the cues from the Asian market. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome back. Thank you so much for staying tuned in. Well, as promised, let's get to a check going on what the Asian markets are up to now. In terms of factors, of course, you have Japan's fourth quarter economic growth data that has come in. There's also a slew of central bank decisions that we're awaiting, at least this week. But on your screens, you can see ASX 200 that's down 0.8% at this point. Even when you take a look at Japan's Nikkei, that is also the one that is currently trading around the flat line. Let's try and get Nikkei up on the screen as well. And while we do that, of course, you do have South Korea's Kospi that also declined about 0.6%. There you have it, Nikkei around the flat line. And when you take a look at South Korea's Kospi, like I mentioned, 0.6% decline coming in for that one. When you take a look at Hang Seng, though, on the flip side, that is the one that is up about 0.8% at this point. So that's what you're looking at, 1% uptick, in fact, coming in for Hang Seng at this point, building on some of those gains seen earlier this morning. Shanghai, of course, flat with a positive bias. That's the kind of handover that you have coming in as far as Shanghai is coming in. So 0.1% uptick, not much to write home about as far as Shanghai is concerned. But yes, when you take a look at the picture that's emerging for the Asian markets, you do have Hong Kong's Hang Seng as well as Shanghai holding on to just a tinge of green at this point, and everything else, be that Japan's Nikkei or Australia's ASX 200, both of them are holding on to a tinge of red at this point. Now, that's the kind of handover that you have as far as Asia is concerned. But back home, of course, we close around the 2,900 mark, and currently what is being penciled in is a rather muted start, not much of an uptick that we're penciling in, at least on a spot basis, Priyanka.
All right, so mixed set of cues coming in from Asian market. GIFT Nifty seems to having reflecting the same. Looks like a softer start for GIFT Nifty again. Let's see. We've seen a losing streak for more than longest losing streak in last 2 years. What we saw last week on Indian markets. But then let's get you some more important events. Yashobhoomi Convention Center, New Delhi has witnessed the resounding success of India Energy Week 2025. Over 120 countries participated in this world-class event where deals were signed between local and global energy leaders. Take a closer look at this report.
नई दिल्ली के यशोभूमि कन्वेंशन सेंटर में इंडिया एनर्जी वीक 2025 सफलतापूर्वक संपन्न हुआ। सम्मेलन में दुनिया भर के एनर्जी लीडर्स और नीति निर्माता शामिल हुए। ये कार्यक्रम 120 से अधिक देशों के साथ भारत के ऊर्जा संबंधों को मजबूत करने का साक्षी बना। बीपीसीएल जैसे प्रमुख लीडर्स ने ऊर्जा लक्ष्यों को आगे बढ़ाने के लिए साझेदारियों की जिम्मेदारी ली।
As BPCL, we have committed to a 5-year strategy called the Project Aspire, where we have worked towards what India will be around 2047. We believe strongly that in 2047, India will be a developed economy.
कार्यक्रम में नवाचारों को प्रेरित करने के लिए एक प्रदर्शनी आयोजित की गई, जिसमें ग्राहक केंद्रित और नेट जीरो लक्ष्य वाले अत्याधुनिक टेक्नोलॉजी का प्रदर्शन किया गया।
The Prime Minister's plan, it's a commitment, Sankalp India to be a developed country by 2047. I think the link between economic activity and energy use is a very well-proven equation.
इंडिया एनर्जी वीक 2025 में न केवल भारत की वैश्विक ऊर्जा क्षेत्र में महत्वपूर्ण भूमिका को उजागर किया गया, बल्कि एक सतत और सुरक्षित ऊर्जा भविष्य की दिशा में सहयोगात्मक प्रयासों के लिए मंच भी तैयार किया गया।
Alright, and we've seen a lot of interesting commentary come out of that particular event, but time for a very quick breather on the show. When we come back, we'll get you more news and updates, so don't go anywhere.
Welcome back. You're watching Market Cafe on ET now, and let's get you some more highlights from GBS. Minister of Communication Jyotiraj Scindia speaking to Times Network Group editor Navika Kumar at the ET Now Global Summit 2025 addressed and answered questions on a range of issues. The minister explained how India is a unique market when it comes to telecom sector. Listen into that exclusive conversation.
I think that, so let me give you the backdrop. In the telecom sector globally, you have very few countries that have more than 2 national players. And we are very lucky in India to have 4 national players. One of them is BSNL. It's extremely important, I believe, from the social perspective as well, until you're able to connect every single village across this country with OFC and broadband and all of that, to have that capability in a government provider. The government has infused close to about 3.04 lakh crores into BSNL. A lot of that had to do with legacy issues as well. For example, we had a VRS that was in place for almost about 50,000 crores. That also includes, the figure I gave you includes the spectrum that was given to BSNL, which is an accounting entry, because the capital infusion that comes in also goes out back to the CFI in terms of payment for that spectrum, which is almost 75,000 crores out of that 3 lakh crores. And then also part of BharatNet, which is our OFC venture, is part of that. But having said that, I am extremely glad to report to you and through you to all our esteemed members sitting here today and the millions that are watching on your channel, that for the first time in 17 years, and 17 years is a long time in economics, for the first time in 17 years after 2007, BSNL has made a net profit for the quarter of October to December. BSNL has not made a net profit for the last 17 years on any quarter. This quarter, December 31st, we closed at 262 crores to be exact net profit, number one. Number two, we've kept our expenses in check. Number three, we've made an operating profit since this capital infusion came in. From 2021, we made an operating profit. So for those of you who understand accounting, on an EBITDA basis, we made an operating profit from 2021 onwards. 23-24, last year, we made an operating profit of 2,100 crores. This 9 months, so I'm taking 9 months, so if you do pro rata of that, 9 months, April to December, we made an operating profit of 2,400 crores. So in 9 months, we've made 10% more than for the full year of last year. And finally, our loss last year was close to 5,500 crores. As of Q3 FY 24-25, which ends quarter ending December 31st, our loss has been narrowed by close to 1,800 crores.
How did you crack the
So
whip?
we are turning it around.
How did you crack the whip?
I cracked no whip. Credit for this goes A, to the leadership of Prime Minister Modi, B, to every employee of my BSNL, who have worked tirelessly to ensure that we turn around the ship and make sure its value accretive to Bharat.
All right, then let's keep it going with coverage from the ET Now Global Business Summit Collective. Then Aisha Faridi caught up with a whole host of industry leaders to understand India's pathway to a $10 trillion economy and what will drive this particular growth coming in. Help us reach this particular goal. Let's go across and listen in to a slice of some of those conversations.
One of the things we are looking to do in India, given all of the volume growth I talked about, is to set up an air cargo hub. Like I said, right now, Dubai is our air cargo hub for the region. But we would love to set up a hub in India, which will be the first of its kind in the country. And I think for that, there needs to be certain regulatory changes that come up in terms of transshipments, regulations, screening, customs, and also airport infrastructure. So I think those are some of the things where a focus on these aspects will help accelerate, from the policy front as well.
Amrendu, any figures to match the kind of vision that Kami just talked about?
Yes, I think she is right on the numbers because you see one of the key things, and we have seen this across India, and it is not just about the steel industry or anything. You see, as the roads have got better in India and the penetration of rail and road network inside the country increasing, you will find, I come from a small village near Nepal border in Bihar. I was born there. The village that I had seen and the village that I see today after 30 years, there is an amazing change. Nothing has come. No industry has come there. No investment has come there. They just have a national highway passing right by the side of the village, and that has changed the economy of the village. That's the kind of inclusivity that infrastructure brings in, logistics brings in. Coming to a larger scale, when I produce 1 ton of steel, I need to move 3.5 tons of raw materials. So you can imagine the kind of logistics and infrastructure that we require. We look forward to that number. As I said, the steel industry is quite bullish as India is being built up. Naturally, the logistics requirement will build up, the supply chain requirement will build up, and I think Kami is right in her numbers.
Yeah. Sorry, you wanted to make a point.
I think one of the other enablers to this is going to be technology. And we have started on that path with the ULIP platform and the idea of digitizing end-to-end. And, when you talk about supply chain resiliency, we need to be able to leverage data and technology. And we need to be able to leverage AI, machine learning, to use historical data to see where we can predict delays and put in place interventions and so on. And we're doing a lot of work with that. We have a product called Surround that uses historical data and including, data on weather.
All right. Right. In fact, continuing with the coverage from the 18 Now Global Business Summit Collective, Nikunj had the chance to quiz the FedEx CEO and Director Raj Subramaniam to understand the kind of potential they see in India on the back of trade deals with the United States and the manufacturing vision over the next decade. Listen into the excerpts from that chat.
Hypothetically, 5 years from now, if we're engaging on the same forum, what do you think we are likely to be discussing? Because today I can smell, I can see, and I can predict optimism in your, in your India commitment. What do you think we're likely to be discussing?
Yeah, I think there are 3 areas where I think we would go forward. I think from our context. One is our core business itself, right? So I do believe that we will be more than double where we are today. I think it's just, I can just feel it. And it's just the energy in this market, what the world is changing. I think we can do that, and we just need to be planning for that kind of growth here. In fact, I'll be talking to my team about this next week. So I think that's what happens. Second is the innovation that's coming out of India. Even in the FedEx world, we're actually doing a lot of things in India that we're building it first in India and scaling it for the other markets. Now, that's new. That didn't happen 2 years ago or 3 years ago. And the architect is sitting right there with Nitin. There's been an unbelievable thing that what we have seen here is that we're building in India on technology, innovating, staying ahead, and then scaling for the rest of the globe. So that, I think, is going to continue. And then thirdly, I do believe that our global capability centers that we have now created here, in terms of talent that's available in this market, especially as FedEx has moved into the digital space, that in a big way, that plays a huge role. So by 2030, I would say all these factors will be pushed to a whole another level.
Looking at the kind of push which is coming in the Indian infrastructure sector, especially aviation, roads and railways, do you think that India eventually could also act as a global hub for FedEx, for example? Right now, Dubai is one.
Yeah, so I think, first of all, the infrastructure, the hard infrastructure and soft infrastructure have to fundamentally evolve and change. And I think, we're already seeing, steps taking place. I certainly believe that's an opportunity for FedEx to put a version of a hub right here, in this market as the market grows.
All right, then let's keep it going with some more interesting commentary. Bright and early this morning, then global winds shaping India's destiny at ET Now Global Business Summit. Sun Pharma's Dilip Shanghvi downplays US tariff worries, calling the impact on Indian pharma minimal. On the flip side, you have Naveen Jindal of JSPL underscoring the need to shield Indian steel from unfair imports, with bold plans to also scale capacity to 16 million tons in just 6 months. Let's go across and listen in to a slice of both these interesting conversations on India's global ambitions.
I think the generic business, as you're aware, has undergone significant price erosion over last few years. So in case if tariffs are levied, I think most of those tariffs will be passed on to customers. So I'm not seeing a significant negative impact of the tariff on the industry, because the competitive advantage that we have as a country is long term. It's not going to go away overnight. And even if some manufacturing was to start, in pharma business, it takes at least 5 to 7 years to bring a new manufacturing facility online, get products approved, start manufacturing. So it's a long-term process. So I expect no immediate short-term impact on tariff in pharma industry.
So if I can pick from your initial answer, Mr. Sanghi, can I say that Indian pharma sector has nothing to worry? In fact, this actually would be an opportunity for Indian pharma sector, because tariffs are coming on China, they're not coming on India.
No, I think you're reading more than what I said. What I said is that our products fulfill a very important healthcare need in the US. So I expect this to be kept out of the scope of tariff. And even if they are not, I think most of the tariff will be passed on to consumer, But what impact it has on the business, very difficult to predict. But we fulfill an important role, and that gives me the confidence that in case if there is a negative, it will be minimum.
Mr. Jindal, that is not the story for the steel sector. For steel sector, tariffs already have been announced, and we know how tariffs, in a sense, could impact steel demand. Is Indian steel sector ready to deal with this reboot in global steel tariffs?
Good evening, everyone. So many of you would be surprised to know that these tariffs from US actually is just not now 25%. There are many products, they're more than 200%. And it's been like that for decades already now. So Indian steel production, I'm sure all of you know that India is the second largest producer of steel in the world. And our capacity is more than double of that of USA. And our population is more than 4 times of USA. So we produce steel in India not for USA. We primarily produce steel for domestic consumption. We are growing. We are a growing economy. We are growing at a very fast rate, much faster than USA or any other country. So our demand is mostly for domestic consumption. And this tariff, it may help us in fact, if they only put 25% and remove all the other, they have anti-dumping duty, they have countervailing duty, etc., which is more than 200%. If they removed all that and put only 25%, and that equates us with every other steel producer in the world, then maybe it may work to our benefit, in fact.
But are Indian steel companies globally competitive? Because the view, at least in the stock markets and those who track steel sector, is that China is better, Russia is cheaper.
No, Indian steel is, like I said, is now second largest producer of steel in the world after China. We are very competitive. We have built our plants now. So we have very, very modern plants. And we are able to compete with everybody. There's hardly any protection that Indian steel industry has. But obviously with this, all the countries that were exporting to USA, they might start wanting to dump in India because we have a huge demand. So for that, Indian steel industry would have to be protected from unfair exports happening into India. So for that, we have already, as the Indian Steel Association, we are already in talks. We have already, filed applications. So DGTR, they are already reviewing, and we hope that in the near future, we are expecting the Commerce Ministry to put countervailing duty duty on all imports from every country.
So
Alright, then that's some interesting commentary coming in from the Global Business Summit. But time for a very quick breather on the show. When we come back, we'll get you more news and updates on the other side. So see you then.
Welcome back. You're tuned into Market Cafe on ET now. Let's get you some more stock-specific news. Mahindra & Mahindra gets record-breaking for its XEV 9e and BE6 on day one itself. The electric origin SUVs secured over 30,000 bookings on February 14, with total booking value of over 8,400 crore. This is noteworthy considering that total electric passenger vehicle sales in India were about 1 lakh units for 2024 for the whole year. Now, the split between XEV 9e and BE6 is 56% and 44%. The top-end Pack 3 featuring a 79 kilowatt-hour battery accounted for 73% of the total bookings across both the brands. Deliveries will begin in the later part of March 2024.
Well, absolutely, it's noteworthy indeed. So that's one stock to watch out for. But let's also take a look at other stocks that you should be watching out for bright and early this morning. And Gaurav is standing by with just that list. Gaurav, good morning. Which are the counters that make it to your list?
Well, yes, earnings have come to an end, and let's talk about stocks which will be in focus on the back of the earnings. So first, let's talk about Utkarsh Small Finance Bank. We saw weak set of numbers. Now, bank has reported net interest income which was flat, but on the other hand, bank also reported losses of around 238 crore rupees for the quarter. And on the other hand, when we look at asset quality, there also we saw a sharp deterioration. So definitely one thing to watch out for. RVNL is yet another candidate with a weak set of numbers, because when we look at the order win, it has been very good for the company. But when it comes to numbers, revenue has declined almost by 2.6%, while profitability declined almost by 13% on a year-on-year basis. We also saw some compression in EBITDA EBITDA margins, and as a result, we will be watching out on this company. On the other hand, we have got the Glenmark Pharma with strong set of numbers. Revenue increased almost by 35%, while the company also reported net profit of around 348 crore rupees versus the losses of 449 crore rupees in the same quarter last year. We also saw EBITDA margin came in at around 17.7%. But we also have another news flow here, is that Glenmark Pharma, US FDA has actually concluded its inspection at one of its facilities in Indore, and they have issued a Form 483 with 5 observations. So on back of this, we will be watching out on this company as well. On the other hand, we have got some companies on the back of the corporate options. So first, let's talk about Alembic Pharma. Now, US FDA also conducted an inspection here, and the company has now given EIR with voluntary action indicated for one of its facilities. Zydus Life Science is also going to be in focus because company's Ambernath plant was under speculation of US FDA, and they have closed their inspection with 0 observations. On the other hand, we have also got BHEL. This company has got a new order. Now, this order is from Singareni Collieries, and this order is worth 6,700 crore rupees, and the company is going to deliver this order in the next 4 years. We have also got Trides, which is in focus today because this company has also received an order from NLC worth 466 crore rupees, and this order is going to get completed in the next 3 years. So definitely watching out on all these companies on the back of the news flow as well as numbers that we have seen throughout the weekend.
Right, Gaurav, thanks very much for highlighting all those stocks on the back of earnings, the move possible and the news flow. Let's see how do traders react on these stocks. Despite last week we saw, despite posting good numbers, stocks were getting hammered because the sentiment was very low. Let's see if you're able to find some feet in this week. But in the meantime, let's get your key news coming in from Delhi. Residents of Delhi NCR woke up to strong tremors as the national capital was hit by a 4.0 magnitude earthquake early on Monday. Now, the epicenter was in South Delhi, according to the reports. Times Network's Sabyasachi talked to people who experienced the tremors and also got us a report with more details on that.
Well, that's right. Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that strong tremors were felt in the national capital and in the nearby areas. Now, he has urged the people of the national capital and the nearby areas to stay alert, to stay calm, to follow the procedure. In fact, he's also stated that the people of the national capital and the nearby areas should also stay alert because of a possible aftershock, because we had seen that the aftershock though has not happened, but the authorities are also keeping a close eye on the current situation. But the update that we are getting is that there has been no damage to any property or lives in the national capital, though the tremors that were felt in the national capital and the nearby areas were quite strong. We had seen that people who were sleeping at that particular time, they even woke up. The people who were out on the street, they also told that how the shocks were quite strong. And these sort of tremors were not usually felt in the national capital, because earlier we had seen that the earthquake happening in the other areas, the tremors were felt in the national capital. But this time around, when the epicenter is here in the national capital, the tremors were extremely strong. So whether it is Prime Minister Narendra Modi or different politicians are taking to social media to asking the people of the national capital and the nearby areas to stay calm, to follow the procedure if there is any aftershock.
All right, 4.0 magnitude earthquake on the Richter scale. That's the latest coming in as far as that particular news is concerned. But with that, completely out of time on this edition of Market Cafe on ET Now. Thank you so much for tuning in.
सर, मुझे क्रिप्टो करके लाइफ बनानी है, पर कॉन्फिडेंस